There's a ton of research out on how women are judged differently than men, and moms are judged. And if we really want to make things different for our kids, we have to tackle some of those narratives head on. We have to start taking those scripts and narratives and get really curious. You almost have to observe yourself, have this out of body experience. What's really going on here? Hey mama, are you feeling like you're walking on eggshells around your little one? Does every day feel like a battleground from breakfast to bedtime? You're not alone. If meltdowns, sensory sensitivities, and communication challenges are turning your days upside down, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Sensory Savvy Mama, the podcast for moms raising neurodivergent little ones. I'm your host, Victoria, and I get it. I've been there. The endless research, the frustrating appointments, the feeling like no one understands what you and your child are going through. Here, we ditch the cookie-cutter advice and embrace the power of understanding your child's unique sensory needs within the context of your family. We'll dive into practical strategies, expert insights, and real-life stories to help you create a calmer, more connected family life. Because you deserve to feel empowered, not exhausted. Let's ditch the overwhelm and discover the joy of raising a sensory kid in a neurodiverse family. You ready? Let's go. Hey mama, welcome back to the final solo episode in this end of summer series. Today we are talking about rewriting the narrative and moving from feelings of shame to feelings of self-trust on your neurodivergent parenting journey. In July, we had several neurodivergent mamas on the podcast and their experience identifying and raising a child or children, but also their own journey. In August, we've been talking about the sensory system, the nervous system's protective responses, and what it means to be a sensory savvy mama. Today, we're closing in with something that's felt but rarely named, the shame and guilt so many mothers carry. And I particularly want to talk about when you have a child with an invisible disability, how much that can compound that effect. And the reclamation process happens when we begin to rewrite the narrative. If you've ever walked out of the store with your child mid-meltdown and felt everyone's eyes on you, or if you've ever questioned every decision after bedtime that you made during the day, if you've ever felt so much stress over an upcoming family event because you know how your family will say things without saying them, and no matter how hard you try to accommodate your child, something happens and you see the disappointment and the judgment and you wonder, why do we even do this? If you've ever left an IEP meeting in tears and frustrated, if you've ever wondered, what am I doing wrong, or why is this so incredibly hard? I want you to know that you are not alone. Truly, there are so many. And one of the things of being an OT is I get to talk to so many moms who have kids going through this. I hear it and I see it. When it's first starting, it can feel like nobody else around you is dealing with this. But thank goodness for the internet and for social media, because there is such an abundance of community and neuro-affirming parents and clinicians and therapists who are posting stuff to provide education if you don't have access to that right now. You're not alone, and you're doing a really good job with what you have. The script you were handed and the rubric that you're using might not only be outdated, be significantly incorrect. Our culture continues to equate parenting success with performance, namely our child's behavior. So when your child is calm and quiet and compliant, you're praised. Same in the classroom. When you have cool, calm, collected kids, you're a good teacher. If you have more active and movement-based classroom, that is frowned upon. As a parent, it's hard because if you have a neurodivergent child who stems publicly and you're okay with that, but then constantly dealing with the side eyes, the whispers, the not so subtle suggestions that people make can really quickly trigger those inner spirals. The narrative says that how our child behaves directly reflects our value as a parent, but especially our value as a mom. So what would it look like if we stopped measuring parenting by performance? What if our child's dysregulation isn't a reflection of our lack of skill, but a clue to shift how we support that child? From the moment we become parents, the messaging is loud. If your child listens, you're doing it right. If they don't, you need to try harder, change your techniques, maybe employ some outdated behavioral strategies. And if you need help, good luck. If your child is neurodivergent, that can double the shame factor because parenting strategies often don't work for your kid or for you. And when we try to explain ourselves out of the situation, we're met with blank stares, unsolicited advice, ableistic narratives, or outright dismissal. And it's easy to shrink, to mask, to hustle for approval. Sometimes we override our own instincts on what is best for our family, and sometimes we pull away for a while. But I just want to encourage you because we cannot rewrite the script if we continue to perform it. And the truth is that script was never written with your child's nervous system in mind. And I will say that when you start to question and get curious, we talk a lot about curiosity on this podcast, but when you get curious about why is this bugging me? Or why do I feel the need to do this? Or why can't we be accepted in the way that I want? Where is this coming from? It becomes easier to reclaim those areas that we have shut down or covered up, not by fixing our kids or society, but by understanding. And yeah, there's definitely some things in society that need to be changed, 100%. But it is really hard when you feel like you're constantly on the defensive and people are constantly judging you and criticizing your beloved child. It's a different energy when all of a sudden I realize they don't understand. And I'm going to do what's right for her and for me so that we're okay. They can take it or leave it. And that's okay. Sometimes that feels more intimidating, but the freedom and ease of co-regulation when you're operating from that place is 1,000 times better. So there was a family that I worked with who had for several years been told that their daughter was fine. They'd gone to different providers and nobody really gave them anything. They just said, oh, it's your parenting or she's fine. You're making this to be a big deal. It's not that big. I don't see what the problem is. But the daily meltdowns, the resistance, the fragility in which this mom showed up on our first session told a totally different story. They'd stopped going out because meltdowns were happening multiple times a day, sometimes lasting 45 minutes or more at home. The thought of trying to go out and manage that in public was just too much. And they knew that going out and being in more sensory overwhelm created more meltdowns. So we worked together and built out the sensory blueprint, getting clear on how this child was processing sensory information, the areas they were struggling with and their strengths that we could build upon, and create this blueprint so that she knew, oh, these are areas where the sensitivity is really high, or these are areas where the input has a really high need. For the first time, this mom could see sensory patterns that had been driving behavior, which had been labeled as manipulative or defiant, overly dramatic, and even to her, it's not that big of a deal. You're making it bigger than it is. It was a big deal. But with that clarity, I made some suggestions and she made some shifts to their home rhythm and their environment. Not huge changes, but they were the right ones. And she intuitively knew, once she had this information, once she had this blueprint, she knew exactly what she could do within their home to make this happen. And they were the right ones for me. Hey, Mama. Do you ever dream of a calmer, more joyful life? A life where mornings aren't a struggle, transitions are smooth, and you can actually enjoy time with your child without constantly worrying about them? A life where you would celebrate your child's unique way of experiencing the world instead of trying to change it? I know you love your child fiercely, but sometimes the meltdowns, the sensory sensitivities, and the constant challenges can make it really hard to connect with your child. You're doing everything you can but you're still searching for answers. You long for stronger connections with your child, a more supportive relationship with your partner, and the ability to balance everyone's needs without guilt. Enough mom guilt. What if you could achieve all of that? What if you had the tools to prevent meltdowns before they happen, to create peaceful routines and confidently support your child's sensory needs? The Sensory Blueprint can help you turn that dream into a reality. It combines a 1-hour intake interview, a thorough sensory assessment, a deep analysis that creates a personalized video review, and a follow-up strategy call with resources and recommendations for you. Imagine understanding the why behind your child's behaviors, building stronger connections, and feeling confident advocating for their unique needs. Imagine your child developing independence at their own pace, social situations becoming more manageable, and your home feeling calmer overall. Imagine enjoying more activities as a family and finally feeling like the parent your child needs you to be. The Sensory Blueprint gives you the clarity and support you need to create a more harmonious and joyful family life. Ready to stop wishing and start living? Click the link in the show notes to learn more about the Sensory Blueprint and finally create the peaceful, connected family you've always wanted. The Sensory Blueprint, because every mom deserves to delight in who her child is and create a thriving family. Her daughter's behavior wasn't the problem to fix. This has been a message that no one puts out very often. It's when we understand our child's sensory processing, it is information that usually just needs a simple translation, but it's not very often available to the families who need it most. Before we can expect a child to change or grow or adapt, to integrate that sensory information to be more stable in their emotions, start outside and work your way in. What can we change in the environment? What can be changed to make this easier for them? Or if you can't adjust the environment, let's say you're at the store, you can't go, well, how can we adapt this to better fit them? Does that mean we need to bring noise-canceling headphones? Does it mean we need to wear sunglasses or a hat? Does it mean we need to have favorite chewies or something to suck on for regulation? What kind of scaffolding or support can we build in to help them build the skill instead of being punished for not having it? This is something I see a lot, not only in homes with families, but in our schools. In Western society, we overestimate children's emotional intelligence and their ability to regulate earlier than they have those skills naturally. When we're dealing with a child who is neurodivergent, there's often a delay in those skills, right? Autism has a component of social communication that is really difficult. So when we have these higher unrealistic expectations on our kids, and put these goals or expectations of, nope, you're going to be able to do this, but they don't have the skill yet, it can be really, really frustrating, both for the parent and for the child, to constantly reach up for these goals that can be unattainable. So looking at really, well, what can we change in the environment first? How can we adapt the tasks first? What are some of the skills that they need before they get to this skill? Do they have a good foundation in place? That's why if you watch the Pyramid of Learning training, which I'll link it in the show notes for you, but it looks at how the sensory system is so foundational to all the other skills that our children need to be successful in everyday tasks like getting dressed, going to school, learning academics, or even things like riding a bike or handwriting and hand dominance. There are building blocks that start out below that. And if we don't go back and address and use a bottom-up approach, and we just keep saying, hitting that top of the pyramid, you need to be here, but they don't have the skills underneath that, it can set us up to fail and our kids to really shut down as a form of preservation. What it really brings to light is that there are these undercurrents and these programmings that aren't really supportive or affirming of who we are and who our kids are. And that as a neurodivergent mom, you're mothering inside systems that are not built to hold us. themes of patriarchy and ableism and capitalism all feed this shame spiral. We're told that our value is in how compliant our children are and how seamlessly we perform under pressure. If our child can't produce or won't produce and doesn't meet neurotypical milestones or requires too much support, sometimes that can be seen as a failure of parenting. Now, consciously, we might not agree with that, but subconsciously, we might be orienting and doing things from that place. We're taught to put our kids first, everyone else's needs first, to mask our own needs, to minimize our own overwhelm and our own sensory needs, and to be endlessly available. But the truth is, these systems don't value your child's needs or your own, and they aren't neutral. They're benefiting from us making ourselves less. It shapes how we see ourselves as moms, but it also shapes how our kids are seeing us model those needs. If you are masking your needs, if you are minimizing your feelings of overwhelm, you're modeling to your kids that they have to mask their needs. They have to minimize their overwhelm. And that weight that we feel as moms in this space isn't just personal, it's a collective experience. Now, I know I might get some kickback on this one, but of course, there are going to be times as moms that we put our kids' needs first. I am well aware of that, and I do that myself as a mom. But more often than not, the rule is to put everyone else's needs before your own. We are not just asked to be self-sacrificial, but we are expected to always be self-sacrificial for our kids, for our partners, for work, for different things. There's a ton of research out on how women are judged differently than men, and moms are judged. And if we really want to make things different for our kids, we have to tackle some of those narratives head on. We have to start taking those scripts and narratives and get really curious. You almost have to observe yourself, have this out of body experience. What's really going on here? It's been something that I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. And it's been really interesting to see how people will make suggestions about the other. They'll dismiss it for you specifically, but then they'll make these generalizations where you're like, wait a minute, I fit into that generalization, but you just said this. That can be really hard. And sometimes the people who have the most ingrained and are the least curious are the people that are the closest to us. So that means we have got to start practicing much better self-compassion, much better radical acceptance. Because if I don't model that for myself, my child isn't going to be picking up on that. I cannot tell you how many times I think, oh, I can advocate for her, I can defend her, I can protect her, all the while sacrificing myself, which seems noble and seems like the right thing to do. But when I really slow down and watch what's happening, and when I start to make those shifts to acknowledge those undercurrents and those conditioning and those programmings, and I start to question that, and then I also acknowledge my own sensory needs when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I see much faster shifts and changes for my child when I start with me, which seems counterintuitive and has been something that I have to keep practicing at, even though I see the fruit of it every single time. That inner self-talk is sometimes the most brutal voice I have ever heard, trying to shift from I'm not a good mom or I'm failing at this to one that's more compassionate of I'm learning, I'm staying curious, I'm figuring out what my child really needs, I'm figuring out what I really need. Sometimes I'm so out of touch with what I need in that moment. What do I want? I have no idea. Being fully present to reflect what's actually happening. I'm building something that works for us. It's going to look different. That's okay. This is really hard, but I'm still going to show up for her. I'm still going to show up for me. And I'm going to get better at prioritizing us. And those micro shifts are how we start to reclaim that narrative. From my own experience, I cannot tell you how important it is to start to carve out and take back 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and get really honest with yourself. I had to do a personal audit. How am I really spending my time? Why am I making choices like this? We went through a really stressful season the last year and a half. And out of that, I had some health issues flare up. No big surprise there. But one of the things has been I've developed some pretty significant food sensitivities. Now, at the end of the day, after working, after managing all the things, keeping on top of all of the things, coming home to make dinner, this is also when my child is most dysregulated. We're hangry, we're tired, too late to take a nap. It can snowball. Before I know it, I'm acting out in ways that I don't want to parent from that place. I don't want to show up from that place, even just as myself. And when I take time to make sure that there's still gas in the tank at the end of the day, if that means that I have to take 20 minutes before I pick her up to regulate my own system and do a quick check-in, it has made a world of difference. I cannot communicate or convey enough how much that little bit makes a huge difference. Now, I am one person who will set an intention of, oh, I'm going to do this every day, da 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 da. And maybe I get to it once, maybe twice, if we're really rock starring it 3 times a week, but I have never, ever been able to do it 7 times a week. Realizing that self-compassion piece, that's still success. That is still progress. And then continuing to build on that instead of, oh, I can never do this. Okay, so 1 out of 5 nights this week went way better because I took that time for myself right before I picked her up to regulate. And how much different our evenings go because of that. It's so worth it. It feels really hard on the front side of it, but then it gets so much easier on the back side of it. And I cannot encourage you enough to start making those little shifts. Where am I spending time? Where can I pull 5 to 10 minutes for me? Where can I almost like secretively, deliciously take back time for myself? Not as a mom, not as an employee, not as a partner, not as any of the roles, but just for me. And being able to touch back into that place, to ground into who I am and how I want to show up, and having this vision for how I want to show up as a mom has been life-changing. And it's been really, really fun. I can't encourage you enough to start making those little shifts. I'm so thankful for you being here, for listening through this series, for choosing clarity and curiosity over the confusion and overwhelm, for being reflective instead of reactive, for choosing to trust yourself over accepting the shame. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of something more grounded. It feels so good because every time you honor your nervous system, every time you respond instead of react, every time you make space for your own needs and for your child's sensory experience, you are changing that script. You are writing it. You're creating a legacy, one that's rooted in respect, shaped by regulation, led by connection. It's so worth building. And it's so, so important, not only for your child, not just for your family, but for you. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of the work you're doing. I'm so proud that you're here and listening. I want to remind you that there are a couple ways to get more support. The first one is free, and it's through the weekly newsletter. I will drop a link in the show notes to sign up for the newsletter, but it is kind of a love letter I write each week. There's tips for how to be a neurodivergent mama that's neuroaffirming, how to care for your own sensory needs, how to rewrite the script like we're talking about today. There's also sensory strategies in there, things to look for, things that you can watch out for in your kid. Hey, if they're doing this, this is what you can do. And then there is the Clarity Lab, which is a self-paced, do-it-yourself option to help you get clear on your nervous system, on your child's patterns, and some of your own regulation strategies. It's a really simple one that you could tackle in one afternoon, or you can spread it out over a couple of days. And then the last one is the sensory blueprint. This is the one I referenced earlier in the episode. It's much more in depth. It's more collaborative. We're working together, having conversation. We map out your child's unique profile and build rhythms that bring more ease into everyday life. There's more back and forth. We have meetings to discuss. Both are available right now, and the links are available in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this episode with somebody who needs it. And I'm so thankful for you. A wonderful, wonderful week. That's it for this week's episode of the Sensory Savvy Mama. I hope you're walking away with some actionable tips and a renewed sense of hope for your journey. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Your child is amazing, and you are the perfect mom for them. If you loved this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other moms like you find our community and lets us know what you want to hear. If you want to connect further, you can find us on Instagram or subscribe to our newsletter for inspiration, exclusive sensory tips, behind-the-scenes glimpses, and so you don't miss out on any new episodes. We are all in this together, Mama. I love you, and I'm so proud of you. One last thing before we go. While I am an occupational therapist, I am not your child's occupational therapist. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. As the parent, you know your child best. So please use your best judgment and consult with your child's healthcare providers before exploring any of the strategies or ideas shared here. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out.